Hello Earthlings and Aliens, it's me, Altea, your art buddy, and today I'm going to be walking you through the process that I use to clean up my traditional art using Photoshop. Even if you're a traditional artist, your art is going to be viewed digitally. It's important to make sure that your art looks its best, especially if you're going to be putting it into a professional online portfolio or making prints. For getting your images into the computer, I'd recommend investing in a large format scanner. I use the Epson WF7610. I believe this one is out of production, but they have newer models in different sizes, and I really haven't tried other brands of printers, so there might be something better out there. I picked this one out because the scanning bed is big enough for up to A3 paper or 11 by 17 inches, which is a standard poster size. If your printer is compatible with Photoshop, you can go ahead and import it directly. I use a program called ViewScan, which is pretty old but is compatible with my scanner and works well enough. More important than the software though is the settings that you use when you scan. You should always scan at least 300 dpi. 300 dpi will give you a high enough resolution for any monitor and is also the minimum size needed to create prints. I save the image as a TIFF, which is a lossless file type. This means that it's going to keep a very high quality image that's not going to get pixelated. It's also compatible with most photo editing programs, including Photoshop. I much prefer this to a PNG or a PSD for this initial scan. Make sure that you scan the whole picture. In ViewScan, you can crop it inside of the widget, but I prefer to add in some wiggle room so I can crop it in Photoshop instead. This gives me more control and a bigger window so I can make sure it looks the way that I want. Next, I'm going to get into Photoshop and show you how I clean up these raw images. Once you have your images all set up on the computer, it's time to open them up in Photoshop. I'm going to show you my process on both a black and white ink drawing and a color painting. First, you're going to rotate the image to the correct orientation. After that, I use the perspective crop tool to crop the image. You can also use the rectangle cropper, but I like that you can correct any slightly crooked image. Photoshop is pretty good at not distorting it. At this stage, I use the brush tool in white to erase any sketchbook seams and other obvious trouble issues, like if you had to include part of the edge in the crop. I also usually go ahead and erase along edges just in case I miss something. For a black and white image, the next thing you're going to do is desaturate your image. You have two options for cleaning up this image after you desaturate. The first thing is going to be the threshold tool. You're going to want to set this to 190, which I find is best for not losing any details. The threshold tool makes your ink show up as pure black pixels against a pure white background. Then you can go ahead and use the white pencil tool to clean up any stray marks. This method is great if you're going to be coloring digitally, as you won't have to worry about the fuzzy edges of the inks when you're using the fill tool, for example. You'll be treating a color image mostly the same as a black and white image. First, you're going to open the adjustments window and select the levels. Select the bottom dropper to set plain white and click on any part of the paper to set the white. You can also hold down the Option or Alt keys to see which areas are white and make sure that as much of that area is taken care of as possible. You'll have to pay attention to the colors on your image this time, since you can change the tone of the image if the white you selected is tinted. If you have any pure black areas, you can click the top dropper to set the black on the page. You can also skip this instead if your image doesn't have any inking. Next, I like to see what auto color and auto contrast give me. Often this is good enough, but if you want any granularity, you can use the hue and saturation or contrast sliders. I find that usually auto color is good enough for most drawings though. Now that my image has the right balance, I can get right into touch-ups. I'm going to be focusing on cleaning up any dirt, dust, lint, straight pencil marks, spills, or just things that I don't like. There's three main tools that I use for this. The first one is the brush tool, of course. This one is straightforward, just eyedropper tool the color that you want and then use the brush to fill it in. This works on plain surfaces like the white of the paper. I wouldn't really recommend it for anything else, as it's hard to get things to blend smoothly and sometimes it's really obvious that you just use the brush tool. Instead, I use either the spot healing brush or the clone stamp tool. The spot healing brush is good in most cases. It samples the area around which you clicked and tries to fix it. I find that this works extremely well with spots in the middle of a big area or on otherwise smooth surfaces. It's often good enough to get brushstrokes correct. However, if you have a fine detail, are on the edge of an area, or trying to fix a line, you'll want to use the clone stamp tool. First, you're going to hit Alt or Option to select an area to clone. The brush will now copy over that part of the image and the surrounding area to your brush. You can use this to continue a line or exactly match the texture of an area. It takes a bit of getting used to, but it's extremely powerful. Again, be careful with this, as it can be really obvious that you've doctored your image using this tool. The first thing you have to do is save your file. I usually keep the full-size TIFF so that I have the raw image in case I have to change the export or otherwise have to edit the image. If you're putting this on the internet though, this file type is often not supported by most browser applications or websites, so you're going to have to convert it to a format that plays nice with most websites. The image is also probably going to be very big, so if you're putting this on the web, you can reduce the DPI. 72 DPI is good enough for most monitors, but it's going to make your image smaller, so be careful and check that this is good enough. In order to change the file type to something that will show well on any website, you can use the quick export as PNG, or you can save a copy as a PNG or a JPEG. Then save the image again. You're all done. I hope this tutorial helped you get your art ready to show to the world. Thank you so much for watching my video. If you're interested in more tutorials like these, subscribe to my channel and check out my tutorials playlist. If you're interested in the high-res uploads of my art or want to suggest any topics, consider supporting me on Patreon. I have a $1 tier for anybody who's just interested in participating in polls or getting to suggest video topics. Alright, that's it from me. Illy! Bye!